So what's up YouTube, it's your boy Jamal. I'm back with another video of the Creatures of the Shallows tank. For those of you who are just showing up and don't know, it is an SCA 50-gallon aquarium, and in this episode I'm going to go ahead and break down what I have inside of the Reef and kind of why I chose to go the direction that I chose to go in with this tank, and what I plan to do in the future as far as corals and future fish that I may or may not implement inside of the system. So we're going to start off with the front right structure inside of my system. I'm sorry, the front left structure inside of my system. I plan on adding more corals similar to the rainbow millie, tricolored acro, and the bubblegum digi, because I believe that once that coral type grows on top of that specific rock, it'll make it look more like a perch for taller corals and a shadowing area for the shorter corals like the zoanthus that you see at the bottom. I also plan on adding a coral in between those two different types of zoanthids, because I don't want any two types of coral or any two corals with the same structure, or I would guess would say like shape, touching each other. Now I know a lot of corals are circular, but I don't want the texture to be the same. So I'm going to add maybe another acan or a lobophilia in between those two zoanthids so that it all looks different. The key is to make sure that each piece of coral doesn't touch another piece of coral that looks like it or is of the same genus or species, because I like a mixed reef to be mixed. Some people do the garden effect, which there's nothing wrong with it, and I'm not saying your tank isn't mixed if you do the garden effect, because if you have different corals, of course it's mixed. But I don't want any of the same corals to touch each other, because if you can have all of them live in unison, it looks more like a real reef. All zoanthids in one part of the tank, all acans in one part of the tank, that's just not realistic to me, and that's just my point of view. Now, people have it and I respect it, and I actually like it in some people's tanks because they did it the way that I would have done it if I were to do it that way. But I'd like my reef the way that I want my reef to be, so I'm going to definitely change that up a little bit. I can't do it 100% because there's just not that many species of corals out there that I want to keep, but I'll do my best and try to make it as perfect as I can. Now onto the second structure in the reef tank. It's actually the front right of my tank, and I don't like this structure at all. I do like the corals on it, but I'm not a fan of the pillar. When I made it, I thought it would be cool to have the corals sitting sideways on the tank. I'm in on the rock, similar to the Zaya's acans that you see down there, the rainbow acans. I meant the Zaya Captain America acans. But they don't grow as well. Now that coral is growing fine, it's not dying or anything like that, but I just don't think that on their sides they grow as well as they would growing towards their food sources, which is the light in the system if you're not feeding them. Another thing that I think I'm going to do with this structure is I'm going to add an Monty cap or a scroll coral to the top of it, because I think that circular scroll or that Monty cap that reaches towards the light, I think that'll give a great look for that structure and change how it actually looks. That green acro that you see at the top, it started off as a small frag that I actually clipped smaller, thinking that it would die because of the algae growth on it, and it actually survived. When I bought it from my local fish store, it had a lot of algae. I bought it because it was cheap, and I just wanted to see if I could save a piece of SPS, and it came back really well. It started off as one polyp, but now it's about 3 or 4 mouths that stick out when the lights are off and the flow's going well. So it's growing. It grew over the glue that I put on there, so we'll see what it ends up being as far as color. I'm sure it's not just going to be green like that, but we'll see what ends up happening. This rock structure is doing really good though as far as growth and coloration for the corals. As you can see, there's a lot of growth and color, but I do need to add some sort of blue to it because it doesn't look like there's any blue on this specific structure. So I'm looking for something blue to stick in between the other corals towards the bottom. So this is just a view of the tank from my bed. This is what I see when I'm laying down or when I wake up in the morning. I just thought it would be cool to show you guys the view that I get when I wake up. Now my favorite coral by far on this side is my bubble coral, because I actually got it for my birthday from my wife, and it actually adds a lot of personality to this side of the tank. So moving on from the bubble coral, as you can see, there's a bright sun blazed blue tip orange plate there. I have no idea why it's so bright. I actually gave it its name because I've never seen a plate coral like that one before. And I've also never seen a plate coral with a different color tips on the end of the tentacles, and that has blue tips. So I love that coral. It's always that bright. Anyone who sees pictures of it always says, why is that thing so bright? How'd you get it so bright? I have no clue. All I do is feed it from time to time some Reef Frenzy, some Reef Roids, and that's it. Now, towards the top of this rock structure to the left, you see 3 different colors of corals that are candy cane corals. And what I did was, in my last system, I had a bunch of them. I fragged off what I could frag off that I wanted, and I put all 3 of them on the same plug. And I know I said that I didn't want 3 of the same coral to touch, but the growth pattern of this coral is kind of like a bouquet of flowers, and I thought it would be cool to have 3 different colors of the same coral grow together in a bouquet, simply because there's no other coral that grows with that pattern. It's like a stiff stick at the bottom, but it has a fluffy top. As you can see, it's moving in the current. The ones to the far left are called kryptonite greens, I believe. The ones to the right are just regular lime greens, and the ones on the top are actually purple and green. I think there's another color morph that I'm looking for. I have no clue what it is. I think they do have another color morph, but when I find it, I'm going to add it to that frag plug and see how it grows out. So now we made it to the middle structure. If you're looking from the front of the tank, this is directly in the middle. A lot of the corals on this are just duplicates of the ones that I have in the tank, so I didn't put the name for all of them. What I am going to do, however, is I have on the left structure towards the bottom, I have 2 sets of rainbow acans. I've already moved one of them out of this spot and put them somewhere else by the time this video is going to be released. And there's another rainbow acan directly in the front. It's the circular one pointing towards you. I'm going to put that one on the sand bed right in front of that spot, and I'm going to add a piece of SPS there, just because, like I said before, I want different textures, and there's too many acans in that one spot, and I just need something different. So I'm going to add something there. Maybe I'll add a monopora, an encrusted Monty, because it'll be able to grow over that whole thing, and that spot, that rock would take the shape of it. So we'll see what happened there. Everything else in this section is growing well, so I'm not going to bother it too much. Now this section right here, the reef, is the furthest from my bed, but it definitely holds a nice place in my heart, just because that green and purple hammer is the first coral that I ever purchased. It's huge. It started off as 1 polyp, and now it's I think about 8 to 10 of them, and they're fat, and those things just open up. That actually is it closing down for the night. It would touch both of the rocks that you see to the left, and it covers the whole back of that wall all the way up to the gold hammer. That coral that you see next to it to the far right, the green lepto, the orange lepto, I have no clue what the full name of that coral is. I could be totally wrong as to what it is. It doesn't open up much in that area. It is encrusting a rock, but it's not as fat as I see it in some people's tanks. So I feed it, and it opens up for feeding, but it's not growing much. So I may have to move that coral from there, and it's possible that the hammer coral is stinging it for territory, so that's probably something I got to take care of sooner rather than later. So if you stuck with me this long, I want to thank you guys for watching the video. Before we get out of here, I'm going to go ahead and rain off the fish that I have. I have 3 blue-green chromis. I have 2 Ocellaris clownfish. I have 1 purple firefish, 1 tail spot blenny, and 1 mandarin goby. A lot of people ask me, how do I feed my mandarin? All I do is I mix Cyclopes in with Reef Frenzy and a little bit of Reef Roids, and I spray it around. What I typically do is I find a little spot or crevice inside of the tank that I can spray the food in, and it'll sit, and the mandarin gobies goes to that spot, or he goes to that spot. It's only one of them. Goes to the spot, and he'll eat out of that spot, or if there's some floating around, sometimes he'll snatch it out of the water column before it hits the floor. So he's a good eater, and he's doing well. All of the corals are doing well. Everything's bouncing back. I just hope that I stop tinkering with stuff and allow the tank to grow. Thank you guys for watching again, and if you want to see more, please like, comment, and subscribe.